Salutations to the nations. What's good, Angel Knots? It's your boy Young Sinai. So today we're gonna be taking a look at a couple of videos. I don't know how many videos to be real, man. I'm trying to give myself some type of a bedtime, man. I'll be saying it way too late. So I either might watch one video, two video, or we might watch 37 video. No, that ain't happening. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to it. So this first video that we're gonna watch is called "Do Handheld Consoles Matter?" We already know how I feel on this channel regarding handhelds. You know what I'm saying? Um, this video was posted by Y2K Collector. All right, let's go ahead and check it out.
Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector here on a cool Sunday morning, just testing out some of my most recent handheld pickups. During GameStop's promotion, I was able to find a good number of PS Vita games,
Oh, he
along with
got the Ninja Gaiden game in the back. You see that, man? I love me some Ninja Gaiden.
a solid number of 3DS games and one very unique DS game in particular in Okamiden. And so I figured I'd kind of just relax this morning. It's Sunday. The sale is over. I am doing zero game hunting today. I will not be game hunting anything. Today is going to be a relaxation day, a day of playing video games. I've hooked up a couple of systems that I intend on playing.
And I think that's important. You know, sometimes we get so busy like hunting for games or hunting for the next game to download or whatever, like we don't take time to actually play the games and I appreciate the game. So that's what's up. He taking a little time off.
Today I've got my PS3 fired up and ready to go for some PS3 games that I want to play. I actually have my Sega CD up and running because I do want to play a little bit more Popful Mail.
Okay.
I think I figured out how to beat the Mad Bomber just now, so I'm gonna have to try and do that again. And then also, of course, I'm gonna be going through and testing some of these handheld games that I picked up. But as I'm doing this, I'm starting to think about, the handheld, corner of video gaming and how that market has vanished. I haven't seen a dedicated handheld console that has been produced and licensed by the big three. And by the big three, I'm referring to Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, right? I have not seen a dedicated handheld console from Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft in years.
Let me see when this video was made. Three days ago. Okay. Why do people not consider the PS Lite? I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. The Switch Lite to be a dedicated handheld console?
And it seems
Because I hear people say that a lot, but I'm like, yo, that's a whole handheld console that's dedicated, does not play on the TV or anything. Why do y'all think that is?
like with the introduction of the Switch, um, it just almost feels like the Switch just kind of makes any other handheld device irrelevant unless it's a device that's being used for emulation, which is why you see a lot of third-party companies making these handheld devices or these emulation devices. And when I think about the more notable third-party companies, obviously the most recent that we've seen is the company that's actually from GameStop, Chromatic. We now have a Chromatic device, which obviously plays certain Game Boy games, and I think they have their own cartridges as well. And then, of course, you have handhelds.
He said Chromatic is from Game Boy. I'm sorry, Chromatic is from GameStop. I never heard that. That's interesting if that's the case. I thought Chromatic was from the dude who made Oculus. Am I mixing up my handheld developers?
Like the Analog Pocket, which is also another very popular device that is used to play handheld games as well. Both very decent systems. I think the Chromatic is still gaining in popularity. The Analog Pocket is well known, but there's a whole host of other devices out there that people use to emulate games. And I think there's a YouTuber, I think his name is Wolfden or Wolfden. He's usually doing reviews on those types.
No, his name is Young Sinai, and his channel is Angel Not Geek Stuff. That's he accidentally said Wolf Den, and I know how me and Wolf Den can you can get confused because we look so similar. We both are white men with long hair and but no, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Shout outs to Wolf Den. That channel dope.
Of devices. I have always been a stock type of person. Anytime I buy something, I really try not to modify it or change it. And that goes from any cars that I've bought to clothes that I buy and even to video games. I like to use them in their most natural form. But we're not seeing really any organic, for lack of better terms, handhelds coming out of any of these companies. And so it has been these third party companies that have taken over and created these handhelds, which really again are purely emulation devices. And so what does that mean for people who did or do enjoy handheld gaming in that way, especially when you think about what Nintendo has done with the Switch and now the Switch 2, and how a lot of these games that we see can actually be played on those devices, let alone when you think about devices like the Steam Deck, which I can't believe I left that out when I was talking about emulation devices. You have the Steam Deck. You have a number of devices out there that people can use to play video games, and it's kind of just made these devices look kind of archaic. Well, not so much the Vita. I'm not gonna lie. No matter how much time goes by, the Vita still looks beautiful. I mean, it still looks amazing. I still put this device up there with any other device that is being put out right now. Just look at that screen, the very clean.
The Vita, the Vita. I never had a Vita, but it just looks like you said. It looks so clean, looks so classic, so classy. Looked like it was. It looked dag near like a Retroid Pocket. You know.
Stainless steel bezel. I mean, I love the Vita. And the 3DS to me, when I look at it, it just takes me back to a different time and era in gaming where we did have these handheld devices. And so,
It still holds up too, man. The 3DS is a good looking console.
as time goes by and as time passes, will handhelds be relevant? Will they be as relevant as, you know, uh, some of your more standard consoles that have to be hooked up to televisions? I think about a lot of what people are collecting and keeping in their collection, and what a lot of people say they're not willing to let go of. No matter how many devices come out, right? No matter how many emulation devices, no matter what Nintendo does, even with their own online platforms, with the Switch Online service, and no matter how many retro games they bring to that, you have a lot of collectors who feel like they're never going to sell their Super Nintendo. They're never going to give up their NES. They're never going to give up their 64. They're never going to give up any of their physical games because they always want to feel like they have that autonomy, like they have that ownership, that they can play those games whenever they want to. But I feel like when it comes to handhelds, you don't see that or hear that same level of vigilance in terms of maintaining a physical collection and making sure that you have these handheld games in your collection ready.
Nah, I disagree. It's definitely people who are very adamant about having their handheld collection. I mean, just um hardware period and physical media period. There is definitely a niche for those people.
And available to play. You hear it more so with like the 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 other consoles, but not so much with handhelds. And I'm not really sure why that is. I'm thinking it's because the Switch already kind of gives you that handheld form factor, which kind of makes, I think, a lot of people feel like they don't need to have certain handhelds, especially when it comes to like a lot of the Nintendo handhelds. But
Okay, so um I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next video. I think that I see where he's coming from. It does not seem like the major three are dropping a lot of handhelds. Nintendo, I mean, definitely is. I hear there's rumors that PlayStation might be dropping a handheld, and I think that even Microsoft said that they might be dropping a handheld. But these are all just rumors and speculation. I don't know if there's any merit to what I'm saying. So I'm just yapping. Let's go ahead to the next video though. But make sure y'all go check out his channel. Man, I just love people who love handhelds. Y'all have a special place in my heart for real, for real. All right, let's go ahead to this next video. Boom. All right.
Angel Knot.
All right, so this is one of my favorite YouTubers. This is Retro Bird, okay? And this is why retro games aren't going anywhere. I agree.
Counting down the time until Bloodborne is 10 years old so I can throw it away, because 10 years is way icky. Oh, it hit 10 years last week? Good riddance. And if you like that, you should have seen my last birthday party. The catering was super affordable. Oh, what's that you say? It's okay for things to be old? What a relief, because I've got all sorts of fun plans for when I'm a geezer, like playing video games, plenty of which will be old games, which, lucky us, are here to stay. Going back to the
It's so crazy that at some point, like PS5 is going to be considered retro, Kind of like how you listen to music on the radio, and like old school hip hop and R&B, and like, this ain't old school. This 50 Cent in the club. This is new. This is not new.
Wii's Virtual Console, the standard was seemingly set that older games are going to be available on whatever the newest generation of consoles is, with constant demands for this title or that title. Not that older games didn't come to more recent consoles before, but the Virtual Console really popularized the idea. People ask for certain games, and those who don't know what those games are will be tempted to check them out to see what all the fuss is about. Kids, it's called Rocket Knight Adventures. You can thank me later. I'd like to think the groundwork for old games sticking around happened due to a combination of several natural causes. First thing is that many of the kids who grew up with these games became adults with disposable incomes and a realization that the true meaning of life is fun video games. You might hate your job, but at least it can fund you a copy of Choo Choo Rocket. Second factor, like I said before, the Virtual Console setting the precedent that tons of old games will be made available on newer hardware. And the final factor, I'd argue,
And that was wrong. That's where we all messed up, was trusting a major corporation like Nintendo to allow us to buy these old games. Man, we thought that we would just have that forever. No. No, 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 no. They don't want you to enjoy these old games because then you won't pay $90 for the new Mario Kart.
because the scope of bigger games on consoles was increasing, including budget, size, how long games took to make, there was a natural desire for smaller games to fill in the gaps. Believe it or not, people can't just play Breath of the Wild for 100.
What game was that? That game looked dope. I gotta run that back. What game is this?
Long games took to make, there was a natural desire for smaller games to fill in the gaps. Believe it or not, people can't just play Breath
If you know what game that is, let me know in the comments.
of the Wild for 100 hours. Oh, they can? Well, not everyone wants to, and even if they do, the desire for smaller, more digestible games is
Oh, boom. It says it in the background. Still Assault. That game looks super dope.
still there. I can consume a game like Donkey Kong 94 in one bite and poop it out the next day. I go to play a game like FF7 Rebirth and I feel like a bear going into hibernation. Time to say goodbye to the world for a few months. To a large extent, the small gaps between playing larger games gets filled by indie games, which, to a large
Hey, he killing Celeste, man. I'll be using I was gonna say all my lives on Celeste, but you don't, I think you got like endless lives. I'd be dying over and over and over.
Extent are inspired by retro games, albeit to varying degrees, but makes sense seeing as retro games provided a proven blueprint for less resource intensive games to make than stuff like Red Dead
And he hecka good at Celeste.
2. You want horse physics like these, you're gonna have to pay the piper with expensive R&D. And while I like to argue that many indie games are inspired by retro games, I should quickly address the folks who say indie games are the true retro games. Not because I want to, more because I have to. Some people are what I like to call the dictionary people. Going by a strict dictionary definition, retro means imitative of older things, not the actual old things themselves. But words get appropriated to
I never knew that. That's interesting. That just changed my whole life.
change in meaning based on how people use them, as has happened since the beginning of time. And people use the term retro to refer to older video games. In any case, I think it's perfectly fine to say that newer games inspired by older games feel retro and could be described as such too. I personally like to think of retro as a style when it comes to games, regardless of when they were made. And it's a really popular style at that. Think about it like art. Let's say painting, been around a long time, provides some visuals that are pretty pleasing, much like pixels, has a unique look. Then compare that to something like 3D rendered art. Requires a computer, much newer than painting, and certainly has its place, but you'd be out of your mind to say it's made painting totally obsolete. And sure, that's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's just to show that newer things don't always replace older things. Your grandmammy's apple pie recipe knows what I'm talking about. Sometimes people can find it obnoxious to refer to pixel art as pixel art, but there really is a craft to arranging pixels in a way that's
People find that offensive? What do y'all think pixel art is?
aesthetically pleasing, not to mention then animating them, scaling, rotating, scrolling, you name it. I've always felt that pixels just have such a clean
Yeah, man, I am a sucker for good pixel art, man. Like, I'll take pixel art over like real realistic graphics any day. My bad, I got a cough drop in my mouth. But yeah, man, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love modern day graphics, but there's a certain charm about pixel art, you know?
look to them. Each pixel is basically a perfectly even square, giving uniformity to the design that provides order and well-defined structure while still allowing tons of possibility for what to do with it. And
He put it in a very more complex way than I would have. But like, hey, it's dope.
speaking of well-defined structure, the fact that pixels are often part of 2D games is a huge part of the picture as well. 2D games are definitely not going anywhere, and using pixels to make them is a match made in heaven. Seeing as pixels and sprites moving on a 2D plane is such a natural fit. 2D gaming simplifies game design in a way, allowing developers to focus on immediacy, precision, and timing in a way that 3D gaming often just cannot, at least not in the same way. Due to 3D gaming's more open-ended nature, there are people who crave what 2D has to offer. It only makes sense for it to stay around. If shovelware games get to stick around, why not 2D games?
Yeah,
Which, to
facts.
anyone who is skeptical there ever was a threat that 2D games had a chance of going away, let me take you back to the late 90s or even early 2000s when it wasn't crazy at all for people to think that 3D gaming would replace 2D gaming. When 3D games first came along, there was an
Here's another thing about pixels versus 3D. Pixel games, the art style holds up. It withstands the test of time. Like pixel art games, you can look at something like Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario World, and those graphics have not aged. They haven't aged. They look just as good as when they first came out. Um, but like a PS1 game, oh man, them must look crazy. There's this meme. I don't know if I can find it. I don't feel like trying to find it, but there's this meme of like NBA 2K and just showing how uh on the when we re-upload this video, I'll have Lucky edit it in. But it's showing how LeBron, how long he's been in the game and how the graphics used to look and how they look now. Man, and it's so funny because back then we didn't know no better. We like, oh my gosh, these graphics are so realistic. Of like these people with square heads.
Obsession with it. Going from the early 90s, where consoles like the NES were really popular, to the end of the decade, where consoles like the Dreamcast were popular.
Like even like Jet Set Radio that has that hand drawn, well, no, I don't know if it's hand drawn, but that art style, like that really holds up today. When games don't try to look ultra realistic, they end up holding up better.
Things had changed very fast, and older video games weren't considered old and cool like they are now. They were just considered old, kind of like my face. Heck, I've always argued that the NES is considered less outdated now than it was in 1998. Funny how that works, right? With how much the 8-bit visual style has been imitated and referenced in newer indie games, I'd like to believe I'm not the only one who thinks using pixels as a visual style, not strictly a limitation of older technology. But even when it comes to older 3D games, for people who might consider games from the GameCube or PS2 to be retro, the visuals of a lot of these games seem to be acceptable, as I think less people are worried about what games look like these days. In fact, while I was making this video, it was announced that Switch 2 will have GameCube games, and shocker, people are excited about it. Artistic vision seems to matter to gamers more now, as it feels like we can't really get much more.
Like Wind Waker, that's another game that's held up because of the art style. I think that Pokemon Legends Arceus, I feel like that game's graphics will hold up over time. You know, everybody was crapping on how bad it looked, including myself when it first came out, but I love the art style now.
More photorealistic at this point. Sure, there are some people who still prioritize that, but back in the 90s and even 2000s, let me tell you, we were obsessed with graphics. Each new console generation brought very tangible changes. Things were moving fast. We wanted to see how far graphical fidelity could be pushed. Nowadays, the obsession seems to be more with games simply running well and being fun to play, with room to praise games for visual.
we're trying to see if games can run like an actual game. Can it actually run? Like that's a huge accomplishment nowadays. That's how low our standards have gotten. This game, I bought it in the first day. It worked. There were no patches or anything. Like that's how low our bar is now.
From more of an artistic vision point of view. In any case, the point I'm getting to is that even older 3D games receive a lot of demand to be re-released on newer hardware. It's got to be the latest hardware too. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were released for the Wii U, but people want it on the Switch. Pretty tough to play the Wii U versions if you don't have a Wii U, I guess. But the demand for older games being released on newer hardware is relentless. Quick little story for you. I'm a huge fan of shoot 'em ups and a huge fan of Sega Genesis, but don't own the game Steel Empire. And still, there was a modern release just for Steel Empire fans. Maybe your takeaway from that is I should own Steel Empire, but the point is that games being brought back goes to the obscurest depths.
That's why I'm such an advocate for emulation, because he brings up a good point. What happens when we can no longer get this console? You know what I mean? Like the Wii U. Like, what are we gonna do? Just not play the game? Heck no. Emulate them up.
And yeah, I know part of it is that in many cases, it's easier to release an older game than to make a brand new game, although there's often a big distinction between certain re-releases and remakes. And to a large extent, I agree with the people who would rather just see effort put towards making something that is indeed brand new. But that's not really what I'm arguing for or against in this video. I'm simply stating why retro games aren't going away, especially with the trend of getting these games on handhelds where the screens just keep on getting bigger. They laughed at me for practicing building up my wrist strength, but don't come crying to me when you can't hold your handhelds.
That's how the that's how the Switch 2 gonna look. That's why they trying to charge an arm and a leg.
So, whether it's older games being re released or remade, or newer games being made with that retro feel, fans of retro are always going to have lots to play. No collecting of old gaming stuff required, not that it stops some of us. And I should also quickly mention that we keep getting newer hardware designed to play older games as well, whether via emulation, more accurate FPGA emulation, or even hardware that lets you play the original cartridges or discs.
What is that? What? I don't know what that is. I think I've seen it before, but I don't know. That it looks super cool though. I ain't gonna hold you.
Themselves. So, yeah, retro is sticking around in a big way. Now, if only we can get more of the younger generations to actually play it.
He's the red.
Yeah, retro games ain't going nowhere. I really love his channel, man. That dude is hilarious. Make sure that y'all go subscribe to Retro Bird. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a night, y'all. I be staying up super late, and you know, I'm trying to also get in shape. And if I'm trying to eat well, and I'm trying to also work out, it defeats the purpose if I stay up to 4 o'clock in the morning and then wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to take my daughter to school. According to Goku, rest is very important. Goku, that is my doctor. um, so yeah, I appreciate y'all tuning in and rocking with me. Please make sure that you like and subscribe and share the video. If you liked it, you know what I'm saying? I'm on my goal to reach my first 1,000 subs. So I would appreciate if you sub if you haven't already. God bless and salutations to the nations. Peace.